Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady and welcome to this third video in the series on expert primary maths teaching of number to 9 to 11-year-olds. This video is going to be all about large numbers. In this video, I'm going to teach you about how we teach children to have a deep understanding of large numbers and a sense of the size of them, and how we teach children to understand large numbers they come across in the real world. We'll talk about place value and systematically understanding how to name numbers and understand the value of each digit in those numbers. I'll talk about formal written addition, subtraction, multiplication and division with large numbers. And finally, I'll give you some suggestions for extending and challenging any child who is absolutely flying with this topic and needs something else to do. Don't worry about having watched any other videos before this one. There's various points in the videos where I will tell you which other videos you need to watch if children are struggling with a particular point. Right, let's get started with how we teach children to have a deep understanding of their large numbers. So I go back to my number lines. If I'm working with a large class or a large group of teachers, I'm usually using a counting stick. But for work with a single child or a small group, these number lines are lovely. You can download this worksheet from all the usual places, the Expert Primary Maths Teaching Facebook group, and there are links from my website, which is authenticmaths.co.uk. Right, so our most simple number line starts at 0 and counts up in ones. And we can represent those numbers with unit blocks. So 1 would be 1 unit block, 2 would be 2 unit blocks, and so on. And we can ask children what's going there and what does it look like. And with a little bit of work, we see that it's 10, and 10 unit blocks are going to make a single stick of 10. Then on our next number line, we're going to count in tens. So 10 will be 1 10, 20 will be 2 tens, 30 will be 3 tens, and so on. And we can ask children what's at the other end of the number line and what is that going to look like. And we can discuss that it's 100, that it looks like 10 of these individual tens, which can also be shown as a single 100. And on we go. So on the next line, I'm going to count in hundreds. We can show 100 with one of these, 200s with 2 of them, and so on. And we can discuss what's the number at the end of this number line. What's it going to look like? Well, it's going to be 10 100s, which is 1,000. And it's going to look like 10 of those flats in a pile, which also looks like one of these, 1,000. Next line. Okay, if you've got a box of this apparatus, you're going to be running out of resources about now. I've got a few more because I run maths teacher training, so you would have. 1,000 looks like that. What's 2,000 going to look like? Now, you're probably going to have to get your children to use their imagination at this stage, but 2,000 is going to look like that. 3,000 will be 3 of those in a stack, and so on. What are we going to get at this end of this line? What's this number? What's it look like? Well, at this stage in notation, we introduce a small gap to show 10,000. And we need to take time to establish that 10,000 is going to be a stick 10 high of these. How big is it going to be? It's 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres by a metre high. Right, let's carry on. So in our next line, we're counting in 10,000s. I'm struggling for space now, so I'm just going to put one of those there. What's going at that end and what is it going to look like? Well, if that 10,000 is one of these sticks a metre high, 20,000 is going to be two of them side by side. And by the time you get to the end of this line, which is 100,000, you're going to have 10 sticks like that side by side. So it's going to look like an enlarged version of 100,000. Each of these squares has become one of these. And we end up with a flat, square, solid cuboid that is 10 centimetres deep, but a metre high and a metre wide. And that is 100,000. Do you know where we're going next? So on our next line, the first section shows 100,000. What's at the other end of the line? What does it look like? With your class or your child, you need to slow down and explore that and make sure you're taking everyone with you. It is 1,000,000, and at this stage we put 2 gaps in the number to write 1,000,000 like that. You can use commas if you like, but I prefer not to because they get confused with decimal points. What does it look like physically? Well, it's like 10 of those where each unit has become 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres on top of each other. So it gives you a metre cubed. A metre cubed of these is 1,000,000. It's really worth spending time on that and exploring it and making sure all the children are comfortable with it. They may want to build a metre cube, so they've got a deep sense of it, or you could just get them to get metre sticks and place them as the edges of a cube, so they've got a sense of that size of that cube. You'd need 12 metre rulers for that, and you can put 4 of them on the floor, and then you'd probably need at least 4, possibly 8 children to hold those metre rulers, but it's nice to do. Carrying on. For counting in millions. Sorry, I'm struggling to fit this on here now. What's going to be at that end? What's it going to look like? We've got 10 of those metre cubes on top of each other. Now that's about as far as we're going at primary school in the core curriculum. But of course you can take it further. And over time you get a sense that these groups of 3 numbers in the way that we structure writing number have meaning. The first digit takes you in one dimension, the second takes you in a second, and the third digit in that group completes the cube. And then we expand the size of the cube with the next 3 digits. Now the next thing we need to do to build children's deep sense of understanding of large numbers is to start to link their experiences of large numbers in the real world to that structure. So we can talk about the number of children in their class and build it with the base 10 blocks, the number of children in their school, the number of children in their local area, or the number of people in their local area, if that's the data you've got. Imagine it in the way that we've just imagined numbers there, so you get a sense of the size of it. Then you can talk about the number of people in your country and the number of people in the world. For numbers of people, it's also great to talk about football crowds or any large gatherings of people that the children have direct experience of. You can also talk about money in all sorts of different contexts to bring numbers to life and give them structure and size that children can imagine. And of course you can ask children to tell you about their experiences of large numbers. Where have they come across them? And build them into this structure so you get a sense of the size of them working with your base 10 blocks and you connect all those number sizes together. The next part of this topic is where children have to learn to carefully and correctly name numbers. This one is 2,376,041. Can they do that? Can they write numbers from written words? And can they identify the value of each digit in this number? So that 3, they'd have to know that that is 300,000. So it can be helpful to set numbers out with column headings, 1s, 10s, 100s. You may prefer to use words, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, and so on. And that bit of work needs to be done and practiced, and children need to become fluent with it. I'll have a free worksheet on that soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. My brilliant worksheet producer, Jeff Kutcher, is working on it right now. The final core activity on large numbers is to practice your column addition, your column subtraction, your short multiplication and your short division with large numbers. Now all of this should flow quite easily from the work children have already done on these methods and the work you've just done on place value with large numbers. But it's a really good idea to practice those calculations at this stage to make sure you identify if children are struggling with any of this, and also just to consolidate their work on those formal calculation strategies. So I'll have a couple of worksheets on calculating with large numbers where there'll be a row of additions, a row of subtractions, a row of multiplications, a row of divisions. And then second worksheet, the calculations are just written horizontally and there's squared paper and children have to set the calculations up themselves. And then you can identify if children have any gaps. And there are various videos in the previous series, series 2 for 7 to 9-year-olds, on column addition, column subtraction, short multiplication, short division, and the one on calculating with decimals is quite useful there too. And if you need help to help children fill their gaps, you'll find the help you need in those videos. Right, what about your stretch and challenge activity for the children who've flown through all that and know exactly what they're doing? It's definitely exploring the names and contexts of even larger numbers than those that you've just covered. Beyond a billion, what number names can they find and how big are those numbers? Can they write something down that they can explain to the rest of the class? Can they think about how big those numbers would be with base 10 blocks and explain that too? They may come across numbers written in standard form, for example, a number written like that. Can they puzzle out what that means? Can they explain it to the class? If you're a class teacher, your children who are working on the stretch and challenge maths really need to be working quite independently because your time will be taken up working with the children who are struggling. So it is not your job to teach them this stuff. They should be researching it independently and inputting into the whole class. If you're working as a tutor or individually with this child, then the world is your oyster. And of course, it's really easy to work with children who've previously struggled with maths and do this stuff and give them tremendous confidence, and it's wonderful to do. So your takeaways from this video are: we need to develop a deep sense of the size of large numbers with children, and we can do that with base 10 blocks, and we can link in experiences in the real world with numbers of people and with money and with anything the children choose to bring into the conversation. Children need to become confident and fluent with naming large numbers and with identifying place value within large numbers. They need to be able to calculate the 4 operations with large numbers. And I've given you some ideas for some stretch and challenge activities for your children who've flown through all of that. If you have any comments or thoughts on this topic and how to teach it to 9 to 11-year-olds, please share your thoughts and comments in the comments section here. I love to read them, hugely value them. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, colleagues, anyone else who you think might find it useful. And if you want any of the free to download worksheets that go with these videos, if you go to authenticmaths.co.uk, which is my website, and go to the worksheets page, you'll see a list of which worksheets are live and of the sites where you can download them for free. I really hope you enjoy teaching this topic. I hope to see you back soon for the next video, which is about the foundations of teaching negative numbers. Bye for now.